The K-Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.
It is a playlist that listens back ancestral echoes, global conversations, deep grooves, and quiet revelations. Of course, welcome to the K-Jazz Show. This is, of course, the second hour of the show. We call it Our Africa, and we are broadcasting from the heart of history here on Kofifi FM, where the spirits of Sophiatown still dance in dust. And today, the studio feels a little bit holier as we are joined by a man whose breath has become a part of the country's wind, if I may say so myself. Of course, he is the Reedman who has walked the long road from the Cape to the world, a storyteller without words and a guardian of the flame. He returns, with a brand new offering, a monumental work titled Children on the Frontline. It is an honor once again to welcome back to the legendary McCoy Mrubata on the K-Jazz Show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's good to be back home. Yeah.
It feels great to have you with us once again. I want to talk about this brand new offering. I didn't see it coming. Yeah. Everybody's like, "Oh, you got a new project. What? Why were you so? Why were you so secretive with the work ahead of this project? Maybe let's unpack that first, because everybody's just like, how? A brand new project?
Yeah. Well, one is constantly working because the reason being that I'm one of those artists who's given music, while they're sleeping every single day. So I have volumes, archives, episodes of music, melodies come to me, every day. So and also one is privileged that he is able to bring this out to the people, so is that's the situation,
Yeah. And but McCoy, the title Children on the Frontline immediately evokes powerful imagery, perhaps taking us back to the smoke and the fire of June 1976, some of them. It speaks to the present as well. Who are the children on the front line, today, and what battle, maybe, are you soundtracking for them?
Man, I'm simply highlighting the problems, around children. They witnessed a lot of hurt, a lot of difficulty, being, in the war zones, that have been there for decades, that are non-stop. And domestic violence, sometimes violence doesn't necessarily, upon to them, but they witness, a parent slapping another, So that impacts the children, it does something, when they are older, so they mimic that, or they get withdrawn, So I guess what I'm trying to say, my wish is for us to limit these conflicts, Yeah. Of course, they've been, like I said, they've been there for a long time, This album makes me think of a couple of images I saw, One was during my pre-teenage years, during Vietnam War, looking at my grandfather, reading a paper, and then newspaper, August. I remember it was August. At the back of it, there was a picture of a naked, Asian girl running away. So that haunted me for a couple of years. How can that be allowed? I was not even 16. I was probably 13. At the time. And then fast forward in the 80s, there was another image, now, probably like 30 some odd years, or no, actually later 40 something, an image of a child, in Africa, skinny baby, with a bloated stomach and ready to die, and the vulture is waiting for her, those kind of things, we do things that, impact, have a sad impact on children. So I'm highlighting that, if we could minimize, and get food, man. There's enough food in the world to go around, and yet some people are getting richer and richer, some are getting poorer and poorer, So I always think of the young ones because they are helpless,
Yeah. And of course, sometimes, we often think of musicians as just that, musicians are those that are here to entertain. But at the same time, we often listen. And if we listen close enough, Bob McCoy, you guys are activists. You guys are storytellers, yes, but you're activists of the times. And as I was listening to the album, this is not just a short visit, it's a journey. And of course, the project, it spans over 15 tracks. In an era of singles and short attention spans, that you've given us a full meal to digest, with these narratives.
I like when you put it, yeah.
Yeah. Why was it important for you to take up so much space, and to let the narrative breathe?
Yeah. Man, one is old school, we love to bring out, full albums, and just give, what's currently happening. We like to mirror what's happening and then bring it out to you guys and the audiences. So it's my contribution to what's happening around. And of course, the album is not necessarily all doom and gloom. I have a few tributes, of people who influenced me and even taught me, and and it explores to deep, the deep, jungles of Africa, Congo, Brazzaville, and Suriname, and all of that. Yeah.
And I want to spend some time, looking at the titles of the track. There's Be Kind. There's also Vivid Africa and what you've named as Suriname. And let's talk about Suriname for a moment. Your sound has always been rooted in the Cape. But Suriname dance, we hear the diaspora calling you, as it always calls all of us.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, man. How did the rhythms, I guess, of Suriname find the way to your horn? Yeah, that's what we want to know.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the spiritual link, I guess, between their dance and our very own Guma.
Yes. First of all, Suriname dance is inspired by a trip I took, to Suriname, and when I was in Lucky Dube's band, I was mesmerized and surprised by a tiny country on top of Brazil, South of America on top there, tiny country. It turned out, only knew then, in 1995, that it was also a Dutch colony. They speak their language and Dutch, And I remember buying a cassette, there was similarity to their rhythms to ours in Africa, Yeah. As you say, Africa in the diaspora, me discovering only then that wow, they are, apart we know about Brazil, but Suriname, So hence I dedicated to their and the way they were dancing, and there was so many similarities, Yeah, we all related, we export what we take from home, and and blend it with the colonizers' sounds or whatever, with in their instruments, So Suriname dance, it came about during thinking of that visit.
Kofifi FM, we're in conversation and in company with the legendary, the iconic South African. He's a saxophonist. His name is McCoy Mrubata. He's not a stranger to these neck of the woods. He's always been a very big part of the KJazz show since 8 years ago. And by the way, we're celebrating 15 years of Kofifi FM, McCoy, and 8 years
Amazing.
of the KJazz show. Yes, this year is a very big year for us. And I also want to tap into, the role of an artist, I suppose, when we talk about that and the celebration of the milestones that we've come around, and become a part of, in the liner notes, our history, jazz musicians have often, been the reporters of this reality that we live in. And with this project, the very brand new one, let's talk about whether you are documenting the state of the nation, or are you trying to heal it in some sense, or are we still trying to spread a message of activism, as we mentioned earlier? And what is it that we're not getting right, in your words, as a musician, I guess,
Yeah, it's a combination of that, I guess one is, try to spread a word, of a plea, comfort as well, and protesting in a way also. We are here for a reason, music is not about dance and celebration. Sometimes we are soothsayers, I can't sing, but I sing with my horn. I convey messages through my horn, and it's up to the people to do the audiences sometimes to interpret it. I remember one time I was playing with my old friend Paul Henma. We were playing in particular one of his songs, a beautiful ballad. This one lady during the break said, "Yo, song number so what? You played just took me to New York. I've never been there, but somehow I was seeing the Hudson Bridge, one of those bridges, San Francisco, that's what instrumental music does sometimes, Of course, lots of people are prompted, directed by the title of the song, and then they connect it in their own way. Yeah.
It is all about the interpretation, I say, and how we listen closely to the words. And words does not mean we are singing or we are speaking, but we are listening to, how you see the world. And of course, you have, worked with so many musicians across the country and across the world. Let's talk about this specific project and some of the travelers, I like to call them, that have worked with you. Who are they and what are their contributions? Or maybe let's talk about what their contributions meant to the project.
A great one. I was privileged when we started, phase one of the recording in 2004. A friend of mine from the States, Gary Whitner, happened to be around. I invited to do to lay a couple of tracks on the songs, and we have a great producer, young man, Luyanda Madope, the dope one. He always oversees my projects, I trust him. And he brings the best out of me, And there's a clue between, he's my lyricist and co-arranger, co-producer. This time around, we didn't bring in Paul. What happened? We felt that Luyanda, a lot of times Luyanda produces the album and play a little bit, and invite, other pianists. This time around, I said, Klobame, please wear the pianist hat full time this time around. And it worked perfectly. He was feeling every song, So he produced and played on all the tracks. And two other great guitarists were involved, Eric Paliani. I felt some tracks needed him, And the last guitarist, the great Louis Mhlanga. And what we did, we got them to play sometimes on the same tracks, complementing, each other. A beautiful thing. And then on bass, we had Unhlanhla Khatebe, who's been in my band for just over 5 years, Yeah. And we brought in Jimmy Mgwandi as well on some tracks. Benis Buikanyo, the groove master. He'll always be, on my albums. We feel one another. Yeah. And then on a few tracks we had, Sam Ibe, beautiful Nigerian drummer, a percussionist who played talking drum. Ayo, I forgot his surname escapes me. Yeah, he plays talking drum. Yeah.
You have such a wonderful array of musicians that have joined you, on this specific project. I want us to maybe unpack, because, some of us listen to jazz for the sound.
Yeah.
Some of us listen to jazz to who does what on the track. Some of us listen to jazz because we want to be in that space where we understand what the creative process of this specific project was. What inspired, children? I think let's call it, the fancy name would be Children Fully, but what inspired, and how was that creative process like in studio? Take us back to those days.
Yeah. I have a soft spot for children in general, Yeah. And the next soft spot is as the elders, my contemporaries, and they come last. So whatever involves children, impacts on children, I take note. And also the inspiration, once again, was my grandson Kaya, of whom I named my previous album, It's a pity, I was not allowed to take him to the studio, Children are the inspiration, and people, they are the future, which is great, but let's direct them in a positive way. They have so much energy. We need to bring them straight into a straight and narrow road. And it was, and also, especially the producer, it was very playful, in the studio during the making of the album, which helps, to bring that child element, especially when we laid the voices for that youthful choir from Cape Town, la 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 la, on the title track, we're singing like children, just to bring that spirit, we really wanted, our young ones to come to the studio for even more inspiration. But I think we did justice, especially on that track.
Yeah.
bakhe imfanelo zabo zokuphila unaphakade.
You know, when I listen to you speak now and reflecting on the moments in studio, I often think about the young musicians that listen to the K Jazz show. You know, we've got those who are established, those are already in studios, in schools, institutions that are already shaping their future. But there's always this one or two, or maybe several others who are also thinking, you know, as a young musician, if I pick up a saxophone today, you know, inspired by children on the front line, what is that one lesson about the quiet revelations of jazz, particularly, you know, in the jazz community, but McCoy, that they hope that, or maybe you hope they learn from this album? What do you want them to take away from this project?
The truthfulness, the simplicity, you know. Sometimes young musicians try hard to be too much contemporary and also sound like you know, overseas guys, you know.
Mm.
I always tell them to tap into what comes naturally, you know, and have that, you know. Of course, like me, I'm, you know, one is inspired by John Coltrane, Wayne Shorter, Winston Mankunku, but at the end of the day, I am McCoy. I need to bring McCoy, you know, into the plate, into the table, you know. I wish they learn to dig deep into themselves and to be truthful, and to be, I feel, pretense as well, in some of the sounds, Yeah, we can be contemporary and modal all the time. I'm adding a musical term now, They just need to dig deep, not even dig deep, try to be themselves, to be, that's all.
Coffee FM, we've been in the company of McCoy Mrubata, and of course, we've been listening to brand new music from his album, Children of On The Frontline. I beg your pardon, it's Children on the Frontline. And of course, the brand new project, which is officially going to be out on the streaming platforms. And of course, we all want to know about McCoy. Is it going to be on CD and vinyl? Are you interested in vinyl yet? Because we want the vinyl, and you don't have to answer that now.
I'm ready to answer it.
Well, then go for it. Let's do it. Let's talk about, are we going to receive it on the vinyls? Are we going to receive it on the CD? I know the CDs always come, for you. We expect the CD.
Yeah.
Let's talk about vinyl, because I think we've got collectors now who are ready for that kind of exposure.
Yes. The vinyl part of things is still coming, but it's definitely there are hard copies, CDs. It's already selling. People can inbox me, and the gentleman who was selling, like Errol, I don't forget his company, Ngwatseng, and it's available. It's already available, and it's flying, on the shelves and on all digital platforms. Vinyl is gonna take it's always difficult to cut a vinyl. It takes months, for to be shipped from Europe. So we're looking at around June, July, for the vinyls to,
Absolutely, you heard it here first. And I want to take, a detour for a moment. And you and I off air were talking about how, there's such an interesting scene happening and growing, in the city, particularly the one that we're in, Johannesburg, in terms of the jazz venues and so on and so forth. I want to hear your take. What does it take, I guess, for musicians to get on these stages? Because everyone seems to kind of gravitate to one's that they know, and like going back to that conversation where we have young guys that are saying, Mara, I really want to perform on that one stage. What does it take for a musician? Or maybe from your experience, I guess, because you are an elder, in the space. What does it take, and what would it take for somebody to be exposed to that and want to, perform at those stages and make inroads, about McCoy, as a musician to be considered as worthy,
Yeah, it takes a lot of practice, Thankfully, these days, these music institutions are doing a great jobs. These young ones, what we our term, they smoking, man. They play, Yeah. All they need are platforms, they are privileged, information is in the tips of their hands, because when I was growing up, stuff that took me 10 years to not necessarily to master, to really get into it, these youngsters, it's only 2 years, sometimes 1 year, because everything is here. We used to go to libraries, and find books, and also record libraries, because at times you can't afford to buy LP, certain LP. You can use music library and then hire it and transcribe whatever sound that's there. Simply because there were new institutions that taught music were non-existent for black folks. So with them, 3 years, they're flying, all they need is us now, so that, like I said earlier, you have too much energy. We need to help contain it and direct them, give them a good direction,
And which leads me to this as we close. I often get into conversations with, professors and those that, hone, I suppose, that teach. And the question has always been, is there a place, Bob McCoy, for South African jazz in the classroom?
Lots. There's lots. Yeah, yeah. How come an uneducated cat, like McCoy Mrubata, who learned music in the streets, shebeens, bandstand, be invited by the Berkeley to run workshops and master classes, UCLA, Howard University, Penn State University, because they see value in McCoy. I don't condone, I don't discourage musicians, to learn by ear and grab reading on the streets. No. That's the situation we were in. I didn't get the opportunity to learn properly. But over the years, I work hard enough so that, I know this game. So these guys see value in guys like us too, In 2018, especially when Paul Henman and myself were celebrating 30 years of friendship and collaborative work, we went on a tour of South Africa and went to the States, That's it, there's that combination. Paul is Leonard, he has papers, it was at UCT. McCoy comes from the University of Shibin, of Kukuletu, Langa, this and that, the streets, it was beautiful, that contrast,
Yeah.
And yet we're on the same path, Professors were amazed what I had to give, and they were amazed by the fact that I knew a lot about their jazz as well, especially when I said I started music. We used to get our shops back in Cape Town to buy certain books. We used to advise them, get this book, simply because of this magazine. There's a jazz magazine, famous jazz magazine, I used to subscribe to. As poor as I was, I would make sure that I have it every month. It's called Downbeat Magazine. It has all the jazz stories, and at the back of that book, the back pages, they'll advertise all these jazz books, and then we'll go to our music shops and say, hey, get this, and then, yeah. So when I will talk about the stuff, they ask me how I started music, how come I know so much, and I will tell them that, we used to hire books, to buy books, via Downbeat Magazine, and like I just told you. And then I mentioned a few books. The teacher said, hold on, McCoy, what did you say? And then he looked at his students. It turned out these very same books he was advising his students, this was at Columbia University, Patterns for Jazz, Jamie Episode, James Baker, all this. I was mentioning this, because I remember them, from that book, I got this approach, this and that, they were amazed,
Yeah. Look, I think it goes without saying, you are extremely well educated in the conversation, fluent even, if we're going to use that word, in the jazz conversation, and we're wrapping up this time. And of course, we're talking about the brand new project. It's simply called Children on the Frontline with Bob McCoy.
Yes.
And if you've just joined us, remember this conversation is going to be on our podcast platforms, and listen out to the show and as to how you can listen to the entire conversation. But I really wanted to take a moment, and pay tribute to you, and also remind, our listeners that Bob McCoy has been part and parcel of the 8 years that we're celebrating of the KJS show. I remember, you were there from the very first time. And, as we look for the next 8 years, we celebrate.
Yes,
And of course, you are the one who creates the setting. And amongst many other musicians, who consistently show us, that South African music is yet just getting started. And we will always celebrate it, of course, here on the K Jazz Show. What's next for you? Of course, tours. Let's talk about that because we want to know. We've spoken about the music. It's out. Yes. We've been listening to some of the music. It's out. Yes. And we want to know, where can we see you live? That's the next conversation.
Yeah, after a successful launch, in Swan at Makotopeng Museum, we're going to have a series of gigs, a kind of an album tour type of thing, Yeah, starting in March, there'll be, adverts out there soon. And then I'll depart, leave for the States for my annual spring tour, of America. I'm leaving at around the 12th of April and back in mid-May, to promote this very same album. And Wako, guess what? Record another one in the States.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With my band there, and recording another album. Whilst in the background, we're working on Brass Cup Sessions Volume 4. So it's gonna be a hectic one. Yeah. And then upon my return, I'll resume with the South African tour, doing the Cape, KZN, and the work, and of course, where I live, Gauteng. Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first, of course, Coffee FM, and you and I will be right there, of course, giving you the front row seat to all of it. We look forward to the Brass Cup Volume 4. That's going to be interesting. We've been I suppose, engaging with 3 for a while now, and of course, we're ready for the next installment of things. But thank you so much, Bob McCoy, for joining us every single Sunday. I know you always kind of put a listen every now and then whenever you can. So we are actually grateful, for always checking in on us. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Yeah, all the best with the station, and congratulations in another 8 years and beyond.
8 years and beyond. Of course, this is music that heals, music that remembers, and we've been sitting at the feet of an elder, listening to the future. But McCoy, thank you for your time, and of course, most importantly, thank you for the music. It is a gift that we do not take for granted, and of course, and you can find Children on the Frontline on all streaming platforms. Go out, stream it, buy it, and let it live in your home and in your heart. And of course, this was our Africa, and we let the music do the talking. And Bob McCoy Mrubata was on the K Jazz Show this Sunday.